the title of our pre-con workshop number 1, take note that there is still workshop number 2, and I think some of you are also in that workshop, ano? So it is designing for flexibility, agility, and sustainability, integrating technology to the face-to-face teaching and learning. So actually, frankly speaking, when I first planned for this pre-conference workshop, the context was still different. So as developments happened with regard to how we will proceed, especially at the higher education level, I tried to make some tweakings here and there so that we can have a more relevant discussion and a more relevant output for this pre-conference workshop. Okay, so I think this is something that is familiar to many of you, or if not to all of you, ano. This is a very recent thing, and in fact, ito yung something new for me, ano, something that I also did not expect that will happen, that we will all be required. Well, not us, because the exception was made for UP Open University when it comes to this instruction coming from the Commission on Higher Education, that in-person classes are required among higher or in higher education institutions starting second semester, and that will be in this school year. So yung mga napag-usapan natin, in fact, there were discussions even before saying that there is no way that we will go back to the pre-pandemic way of teaching and learning. Lagi nating sinasabi yon, ano, hindi na tayo babalik dun sa ano, kung paano tayo nagtuturo before the COVID-19 pandemic. And in fact, we were saying that we have to make the most out of the investments and out of the efforts that we exerted when we did remote teaching and learning from March 2020 up to the current time. Kasi hanggang ngayon naman, hindi pa naman talaga full face-to-face yung ginagawa natin for many of our courses. So this is the context. This is the context of our discussion this afternoon. And together, we will try to really design how should higher education institution conduct our classes in the post-COVID-19 pandemic era, so that we can maximize all our investments, efforts exerted during the COVID-19 pandemic, and also ensure that it will be a more effective and more efficient teaching and learning that we will do in the post-COVID-19 era. Okay? So ito yung sinasabi kong memorandum, ano, CHED Memorandum Order 16 Series of 2022 states that unless there is an approval from CHED, a higher education institution cannot offer its recognized degree programs in full distance learning delivery, including fully online modality. Okay. So alam naman natin na if you want to offer your programs in the distance education mode, then you have to apply for accreditation, etc. And that is as per RA 10650 or the Open Distance Learning Act. So for HEIs that will opt to deliver their degree programs in hybrid learning modality. So kung titingnan natin, meron ditong sinabi na pwede kayong pwede naman na hindi full face to face. Yung mga nakasubaybay sa inyo, those who were able to listen to the budget hearings conducted during the last few weeks or so, ang sinasabi is 75%, and that was as per yung CHED Memorandum Order nung 27 yata, matagal na, 2012 pa yata yon. So ngayon, this CHED Memorandum Order is saying that 50% na lang ang kailangan yung total contact time on on-site learning experiences. Okay? So the rest of the contact hours, so 50% ay on-site learning experiences, the rest of the contact hours may be delivered through other flexible learning strategies. So ito na yung ito na yung compromise na hindi na talaga tayo babalik doon sa the way we've been teaching and learning during the time of during the pre-COVID pandemic, ano. So other flexible learning strategies such as self-paced, printed, or online learning modules, synchronous or asynchronous learning sessions, and remote guided peer learning approaches. So now, given this memorandum order from CHED, how can we maximize? How can we maximize the 50% on-site learning experiences and the 50% allowed for flexible, independent learning activities that we can have in our courses so that we can still achieve the agility and the flexibility that we want to have in our education ecosystem. We have to take note na, okay, ang sabi nga nila, we have to learn to live with the pandemic, with the COVID-19 virus, no? Kailangan pa rin na mag-iingat tayo, parang sinasabi nila, the virus is still here, and we have to learn to live with it. But in addition to that, lalo tayo sa Pilipinas, we often experience many calamities, disasters, etc. na more often than not, it disrupts or they disrupt our learning or the learning of our students, hindi makapasok sa klase, etc., etc. So our goal really is to be flexible, to be agile. We can immediately shift to another mode of learning, of teaching and learning, if our students or we cannot go to school to have our classes in the school. So be agile, responding immediately, and be flexible. We can have different modalities as the need arises, and still attain the quality of learning, the quality of education that we want to give to our students. So ang ano rin dito, we are saying, based on our construct of sustainability in education, we also say that by being flexible, by being agile, by being relevant, and offering quality education to our various learners, various types of learners, we can also achieve sustainability in our education ecosystem. So yun yung ating construct, ano? That's why we will try to be agile and flexible using the different information and communication technologies, no, that are relevant, that are appropriate to the learning outcomes, and be able to achieve that sustainability in our education ecosystem. Okay, so in this workshop, we are hoping that we can walk you through, our teacher participants, in designing a technology-enabled learning that is contextualized in a face-to-face setting. Meaning to say that it is still within that CHED memorandum order, saying that or describing it as the hybrid learning modality. Okay, so yun yung ano natin. So let us try to see to walk through in the design of our courses, which we can describe as technology-enabled, technology-enhanced, but still within the context of the hybrid learning modality described in the CHED memorandum order. So there will be lecture discussion, first on articulating the hybrid learning modality, and of course, the workshop component, which is designing a course in the hybrid learning modality. Okay? So, ano nga bang ibig sabihin? Kasi when we talk of hybrid learning, if you search the literature, and you can probably try doing it now, maraming definition. There will be various definitions of what hybrid learning is all about. But I think there are some agreements on what exactly is hybrid learning, especially in the context of the CHED memorandum order. So it takes the best of both worlds, that is the face-to-face and online learning. Technology is there to facilitate the different types of learning, whether it's an in-person learning or independent learning. Class time can be shortened and or used for activities that better lend themselves to face-to-face interaction, yung sa, especially when we assign independent learning activities. It can support a more diverse range of learners. And if I may add, I always say that by introducing or integrating technology into our course design, into the way we will deliver the instructional content, we can also cater to the needs of the more diverse range of learners, even those who are physically challenged. And that is by integrating some basic features of the universal design for learning. So yon, we can be more inclusive, our courses can be more accessible, and at the same time, we are offering flexibility not only to us, teachers, but also more specifically to our learners. There are more options for learning, and we can have that elbow room to integrate many activities, especially those which are are more real life situation, and which can lead to deeper learning. Kasi our students are not on campus, they are not in the classroom, and therefore we can design different activities that can really give them the application, the opportunity to apply the different concepts that we are discussing in the classroom, and which can lead into deeper learning. So ito pa, definitions pa rin ng hybrid learning, combination of in-class and online learning, but each modality should complement the other. Hindi yung lagi nating sinasabi na, gusto kong mag-online ngayon. So, sige, bukas class online na tayo. It's not like that. We really have to design such that the in-class and online learning, or in-person learning and online learning, will really complement each other and be part of a single structure. They will support each other to enable our students to achieve the learning outcomes. So although the terms hybrid learning and blended learning are used interchangeably, they are different. So kung marinig natin hybrid learning, blended learning, minsan ginagamit interchangeably. Mamaya may bagong concept pa napapasok, yung flip learning or flip classroom. We can somehow differentiate one from the other. So let's try to see the main difference between hybrid and blended. So ito sinabi nitong reference na to, primarily on the proportion of face-to-face and online sessions and or instructional material in a given course. So sabi dito, in a hybrid learning format, the two modes are evenly split. So ito yung konteksto noong CHED memorandum order. Two modes, the in-person and the online, are evenly split. So 50% contact learning experiences and 50% ay pwedeng independent learning. While in the blended learning, it is 25-75 favoring online mode of instruction. So ganyan niya differentiate. Although for me, it is not so much on the percentage. Based on my own articulation of blended learning, it doesn't have to be this fix of 25 and 75. But you can design it in such a way that whichever will be more appropriate for in-person, etc. And there are also different models for blended learning. Okay? So blended learning uses online learning resources to supplement face-to-face instruction, while hybrid learning uses online resources to replace portions of students' instruction that would otherwise be delivered face-to-face. So halimbawa, yung mga lecture, sa halip na mag-lecture ang teacher during face-to-face meetings, the face-to-face meetings can be used for other learning activities. Sabi nga, if I may make an example. So I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, we had a meeting. We had a meeting with some colleagues from the Asian Association of Open Universities, and the developer of Moodle, that's Martin Dugiamas. And what he and the other one is the founder of Moodle Moot Japan. So what Martin Dugiamas wants to do is for us to conduct a research that would significantly improve the learning management system, which is Moodle. As you all know, UPOU is using Moodle for so many years already, and of course there are also many other universities who are using this learning management system for their online teaching and learning. So when we were talking about what exactly is it that we found not so good in Moodle, so I started by saying Well, the big blue button is something that we really cannot use at UPOU. Somehow, there are some technical issues. We cannot communicate with so many students, etc., etc. So if we want to do synchronous sessions, synchronous online session, we opt for Zoom. And then Martin Dugiyama said, "But why exactly do you want to do synchronous session? Is it to do lecture? Somehow it does not align with good pedagogy, because you are wasting an opportunity for you to do other learning activities with your students with you. I mean, in a synchronous session, instead of just lecturing. So that is also something that we have to consider when we design courses in the hybrid learning mode, that is replacing some portions of students' instruction that would otherwise be delivered in a face-to-face session. But there are challenges. So, ngayon pa lang, as we prepare, kasi ang sabi do sa by the second semester, dapat ganito na yung mode of teaching and learning natin sa mga HEIs dito sa Philippines. But the hardest part is figuring out how to integrate the two experiences. Paano nga ba natin i-design such that hindi hiwalay, they will complement each other, and they will support, that the two modalities will support each other, and amplify, ito yung word na ginamit, amplify each other, so that we can really facilitate deep learning and the achievement of learning outcomes. So ang sinabi dito, don't simply take the traditional model and try to fit it into the online learning framework. Parang sinabi ko kanina na, okay, so this is, I used to teach this course in a face-to-face mode, ito online, ito hindi ganon. So we really have to design even the learning activities that are more aligned with the modality wherein we will conduct those learning activities. So in a hybrid learning mode, as also emphasized in the CHED Memorandum Order, 50% lang. We will only be meeting our students. If we really want to do it that way, we will only be meeting our students 50% of the class time. So halimbawa, kung ang semester ninyo ay sa OU kasi it's 48 hours in a semester per class, tapos kung 50% lang, 24 hours mo lang imimit yung klase mo. So we have to recognize that class time will be limited in a face-to-face setting. Yun lang, kung talagang gusto natin na ma-maximize itong mga modalities na to, kailangan ma-maximize natin yung class time wherein we will be with our students. And whenever something is limited, it becomes more precious. Therefore, we need to design the in-person learning so as to maximize that meeting, that opportunity for the teacher and the students to meet. So hindi natin gagamitin yon sa mga lectures. Okay. So the sessions that are designated for online work in a hybrid class are not merely for reviewing material, they are intentionally much more active. So class time needs to be used more purposefully. Kailangan alam talaga natin ano yung mga activities. So dito, pumapasok sa, baka pwedeng katulad, we can design our courses such that we can have it like a flipped classroom. Totoo yun. Pwede rin gano'n, papasok yun sa isip natin. In fact, when I also first read that memorandum order, my first reaction was, okay, so we design it like a flipped classroom, where the students review video lectures, other resources online, and then come to class ready to go further with what they covered. But it may not be a completely apt comparison kasi we can do more activities. We can have more activities with that 50% of the time na hindi lang, not just reviewing video lectures and other resources. In fact, we can integrate more activities. We can integrate more activities into that independent component of the course, and which may not be exactly like a flipped classroom. Although those who are articulating the flipped classroom, sometimes they are also saying na pwede rin naman, and it's not just limited, the independent learning is not just limited to reviewing video lectures and other resources. So it really depends on how we're going to implement this. We can have some tweakings here and there, and it will be us, the teachers, who will make a decision how we are going to maximize those two learning modalities. So kung titingnan natin, this is a comparison. This is a comparison between hybrid and the traditional learning. So it's just an overview and saying na instructor role in a traditional learning, this is the role of the teacher, tayo, authority, we give quizzes, etc., etc. But in a hybrid learning, as we always say, we became the guide on the side instead of the sage on the stage. I always say that in a learning like this, especially in a technology enhanced, wherein there are many resources available online, we the teachers will be the architects of learning. Kasi tayo yung magdi-design tayo ang magdi-design at tayo ang mag-iisip what materials will be more appropriate for the learning of our students. So ito yung mga students' role, attend classes, do homework, take tests, etc., etc. But in a hybrid learning mode, we give more responsibility for learning to our students, and they are required, or they will be required, to do individual or collaborative work, which I can say is more empowering. If we are talking of learner agency, student agency, then we empower our students to really exercise their to exercise their talents, use their talents, use what they have learned, so that they can do more collaborative work, especially those which will enable them to complete your course requirements, the learning environment, class lectures, but in a hybrid learning mode, as I mentioned earlier, partially online, partially face-to-face. So it means to say that the students are not always in the classroom. Approach that teacher-centered, passive, individual. For the hybrid learning, we are saying that it is a more learner-centered approach. And even when we design our courses, it's more of taking into consideration the context of our learners. So in class time, we have online learning activities, even, of course, there are in-person activities which should be designed carefully. And of course, the out-of-class time, we have this watching videos, searching for materials, collaborative writing assignments, etc., etc. So this is just an overview of the differences between traditional learning and hybrid learning. Now, at this point, you may also want to make some reflections. Paano ko nga ba dinesign? Paano ko nga ba dinesign ang aking kurso? At what changes can I make so that I will be leaning more towards hybrid learning modality. Okay? It will not be that difficult given our experience when we were doing the remote teaching and learning during the past 2 years. So, i-evaluate na lang natin yan Evaluate na lang natin, titingnan natin how else can we improve the design of our courses. Okay? So how to design a hybrid learning course? So ito na yung mga steps na natin, nasusundin natin in the workshop. So, questions to ask. What do you want your students to be able to do? Know or value as a result of taking your class? In short, these are your learning outcomes. It's there already. Pagka nandiyan na yung course syllabus natin, ito rin lagi nating sinasabi, even when we were doing webinars in 2020, we started doing webinars March 2020 to help our colleagues in the education sector to rapidly shift to remote teaching and learning. And I always say, start where you are, start with what you have. So review your learning outcomes and take it from there. Kasi yun yung mag-guide sa atin, yun yung compass natin in designing our course. So that's the first question to ask. What do you want your students to be able to do, know or value as a result of taking your class? The next question is, what learning activities? So kung makikita ninyo, this is like a backward design process. You start with the learning outcomes and then you you now develop the learning activities that will provide your students with opportunities to develop or demonstrate those learning outcomes. So, ano ba yung mga activities? Ano yung assessment na pwede kong ibigay that will help them? And then, which of these learning activities or assessments would best lend themselves to an online format? So, alin yung pwedeng gawin online at alin ang pwedeng gawin ng face-to-face? At ano yung combination ng online and in-class activities that would best address teaching and learning objectives? Ano yung magsimbawa? May pinagawa kayong online activity, pwedeng isupport yun ng in-class activities para mas ma-validate ang learning at mas magkaroon ng application ng concept with the teacher there together with the student, mas masusupervise noong teacher. So kung if you will recall, if you will reflect further on this, medyo may katulad siya talaga doon sa flip learning design of courses, kasi talagang kailangan yung kombinasyon ng online and in-class activities that would best address the learning outcomes. So ito yung tatlong basic questions. And then saka pa lang papasok kung ano yung mga instructional content na ibibigay mo, 'di ba? Hindi yung magsisimula ka doon sa lesson at saka mo pa lang iisipin yung assessment. No, it's not advised that way. We start with the learning outcomes, the activities, assessment, etc. And then we now think of what instructional content can we provide so that the students will be enabled to achieve the learning outcomes. So these are the examples of online learning activities. Of course, these are just examples, no? Pwede pa kayong mag-isip, marami pa kayong pwedeng isipin. I always say that for us who are teaching online, creativity when it comes to developing learning activities, masyadong magiging tulong sa atin. We have to be more creative, we have to be more imaginative when we design learning activities, especially if these are online learning activities. So ito lang mga examples: wikis and blogs. Have students compile a course glossary together or work in groups to produce a proposal. Collaborative writing exposes students to various writing styles and approaches and provide them with more feedback in their own writing and ideas. We have to take note that when we assign our students to do these activities, itong mga learning activities, we are also training them to work as part of a team. In some cases, we are training them to be leaders, right? So ito yung mga other competencies, other 21st century competencies that hindi lang yung content ang itinuturo natin sa ating mga estudyante, but also these very important skills and attributes. So when we design these learning activities, yes, we are teaching them the content, but at the same time, there are associated skills and knowledge that we are also teaching our students. So iba yung when we design, we have to think out of the box and try to see how we can better take that opportunity wherein our students will engage in collaborative activities, no? Yung iba nga if you will read more about the holistic curriculum or approach, yung mga courses pinagko-combine. So halimbawa, I will ask the students to do a writing exercise. Then we can probably choose a topic that is related to science, related to history. So in a way, we are teaching them how to write properly, effective writing communication. But at the same time, they have to do some research for science, if that is the topic of their choice, or even history, if that is what they want to write about. So may mga ganon na pwede nating gawin, no? So again, not only the content, but also other associated skills when we develop learning activities for our courses. So Another online example of online learning activity which we can ask our students to do are this. We can assign readings, video tutorials, or documentaries, require them to take an online quiz before attending a class. So itong ano na to, more or less similar to a flipped classroom kasi ito usually mga activities that we ask them to do. But and again, the purpose is to prepare the students for in-class activities. Kasi pagdating sa klase, in the in-person meeting, we will no longer do lectures, but instead there will be activities which we can ask our students to do. So itong minsan tong online quiz before attending the class will also give us some information. What exactly is the level of knowledge of our students when it comes to the lesson that we are about to discuss in the classroom. So maraming pwedeng ibigay na impormasyon sa atin at the same time that it will prepare, these activities will prepare our students for in-class activities. Engage students in online discussion. So asynchronous discussion, in a way, this will be, learning management system will be handy, will be needed, so that we can provide a platform wherein our students can discuss, can interact asynchronously. No, katulad ng ginagawa natin doon sa in the remote instruction, ano, may mga discussion forums tayo, and then they will be interacting with each other. If I may mention at this point, 'di ba yung lagi nating sinasabi na in designing our courses, we also have to facilitate the different types of interactions which we know can really facilitate learning. So one is the learner content interaction. So yun yung we ask them to read, yung view materials, video materials, etc. Learner interaction, of course, aside from the face-to-face, in the face-to-face meetings we are asking them to do work together, collaborative work in online setting, etc. This asynchronous discussion through the learning management system is also one way of facilitating the learner-learner interaction. And of course, the learner-teacher interaction, we have that through in the design of our courses. Even if we are not talking to them, even if we are not giving lectures, by giving feedback, we are also facilitating the learner-teacher interaction, quizzes, etc. And as I mentioned already, the feedback, especially to the course requirements that they have submitted. In some cases, we can also facilitate the learner community of practice interaction through the learning activities that we can design in our courses. Okay, so again, these are examples of online learning activities you can add to the list and integrate them or include them in your respective courses. Still another example, self-assessment, peer assessment skills. So yung self-assessment, we can design online assessment tools like yung mga self-assessment na which they can take after reading, after viewing a material. Meron tayong mga ibibigay sa kanila na mga questions and that they can assess by themselves whether there are things that they haven't understood from the material and which they can probably discuss during the face-to-face meeting. Peer assessment is something that I always include in my courses, wherein I ask, and something that we will also exercise in this workshop, wherein you will be asked to evaluate the activity or the submission of a fellow learner. And the way you will evaluate the work of your fellow learner will also be indicative of your understanding of the lesson. So in my courses, for instance, I always say that the grade of your fellow learner will not depend on how you evaluated his or her work. But your grade will depend or could be used as basis, or your grade will depend on how you evaluated your fellow learner, because again, that is indicative of what you have learned from the course. So yun yung value ng peer assessment. And then of course, you get to be exposed to the works of your fellow learners, which is also for me is a learning experience. Okay? So ito na yung ating in-class learning activities, ano? So kanina meron tayo na online. So ito naman in class na pagka magkakaroon na tayo ng mga meetings, no? So these are just examples again. Pick 1 or 2 samples of online student work to discuss in more detail in class. So kung titingnan natin, some are saying na parang mas maraming trabaho dito yung teacher, ano? Well, that is probably true, ano? Kasi ang dami mong preparasyon na gagawin. I also had experience of teaching in a residential course, and yeah, yung aking mga presentation naka-prepare na yan, o paulit-ulit ko lang ginagamit yan every time na magtuturo ako ng kurso na yon. Pero ito, every time that you will meet your students, kailangan meron kang ibang preparasyon na gagawin. So like for instance, this one. So kapag may face-to-face you know that this is what you're going to do, but you have to look at the work of your students and try to pick 2 samples wherein you will discuss in detail. So, mas maganda kung magkaiba sila para mas magiging malalim ang discussion when it comes to the peer-to-peer, face-to-face meeting. Or have students present research findings, especially if you ask them to do online research. You can ask them to report or discuss among themselves, and then after the group discussion, ask them to present in front of the class. That is in a face-to-face meeting. Active learning techniques, quick writing responses, yung mga tatanungin natin sila, susulat sila, and then minsan board work, ganyan, or working in pairs to answer questions. So these are things that we can also consider when we design in-class learning activities. Again, make students do collaborative work. Pwede rin na halimbawa magsosolve sila ng mga case studies, ganyan, and then they will be working inside the classroom, discussing, and we teachers will just be supervising what they are doing. So how can we now integrate? So kanina, meron kang online at meron kang in-class. So dito, when we review or design our hybrid learning course, we need to ask how the online and the face-to-face components work together to address the learning outcomes. So are they supporting each other? Na re-reinforce ba halimbawa when we ask our students to do online activities, when they come to a face-to-face meeting, are we reinforcing, validating, confirming what they have learned in the online activities that we assigned to them? So yun yung kailangan nating isipin when we design the online activities and the in-class activities. Okay? So integrating, these are examples again. Work online and then meet face-to-face. Meron silang mga group projects, and then pagdating sa face-to-face, magkakaroon sila ng presentation and discussion. Interacting with content online, tapos pagdating doon, pwede silang magkaroon ng debate pagdating sa klase. Okay? Online interactions can reinforce or extend. Students provide feedback to each other, parang peer assessment, or finish a discussion that started, a discussion online that started in the class. Have students post key definitions online, and then the students can help in editing and refining. So what to do with extra class time? Kasi marami ka nang pinagawa ng online activities. So we can have assessment. We can use classroom. Kasi di ba, during the remote teaching and learning natin na ginawa during the pandemic, ang laging problema ng mga teacher ay paano ko gagawin yung assessment? How can I ensure the integrity of the assessment process and the results, di ba? Marami tayong tanong. So in this hybrid learning modality, yung mga assessment mo, you can do that during the face-to-face meeting. using the classroom assessment techniques, no? Para talagang ma-validate mo at makampante ka na, tama, itong estudyante ko talaga yung natuto, estudyante ko yung sumasagot. But of course, we are still advocating for authentic assessment, which can be combined with classroom assessment techniques. More feedback, walking around, answering student questions as they work through and get stuck on problems. Mas maganda nga, bigyan mo sila ng cases, and then as they discuss, you can provide more feedback and encourage them to ask more questions so that are related to the lesson or concept that you are discussing. Thank you very much.